Alright, Facebook. Video I wanted to make today is going to be about privilege. Now, I'm hearing this word on a regular basis now, and my ears tend to perk up whenever I observe repetitious patterns because I've yet to see anything good happen after a repetitive pattern. So, privilege. Privilege is what people are considering some kind of invisible cosmic force that imbues certain people with certain opportunities, and it also disparages people from certain opportunities. So when we look at privilege, we have to understand that privilege is something that is delineated from someone in a position of authority. So anyone who has the capacity to imbue somebody with the benefits of a said privilege is truly the one behind the privilege, but not the individual themselves. And so when trying to address privilege as an issue as a whole, you don't really get any type of real results, because essentially you're arguing about something that somebody else cannot help. If I have privilege because I'm a light-skinned black guy, I can't help that people are giving me this agency. I can't help that. If it's beyond my control, to argue with me over is to basically ask me to paint myself a darker color. It's stupid. But yet, when you take the notion of privilege that I outlined, it sounds stupid. But the way things are going on nowadays, they're trying to jazz it up to make people believe that they are considered to be inferior by a system that wants to continue to subjugate them. But the thing that people don't realize is that the source of all self-subjugation comes from a lack of self-knowledge. So if you have self-knowledge, and the highest extent of your self-knowledge is that you have less privilege than another person, that's your personal choice to not enact efforts to get anything else greater. If you aren't willing to be a pioneer and to venture out and to do something bold, creative, different, exciting, innovative, if you're not willing to do these things, then you have one of the greatest privileges ever. You have the privilege to basically bullshit yourself. And that's all that this discussion of privilege has turned into. There is no privilege other than the privileges we esteem for ourselves. If anyone knows anything about human nature, it's that we tend to treat things that we earn better than the things that are given to us. And so when you look at people who have the benefits of privileges, they don't have the same level of discipline to maximize the opportunities given in the privilege, whereas somebody who has worked to earn it has a greater value and understanding on how to use it properly. So if somebody was born into a rich family and they're white or whatever, there's a level of discipline required of the upbringing of this child in order to make them a good steward of the benefits they have. And 99.9% of the time, we rarely see anyone kind of taking up the torch. And so when people aren't taking up the torch, the whole concept of self-privilege becomes abysmal, because we feel that it's outside of ourselves to esteem our own value, that we have to have other people value us. So if you live your life based upon how other people see you, then you're invisible, because nobody's going to see the same thing. The only person who's going to see you as you every day is yourself, and that's the person's whose opinion truly matters. If you want to blame privilege for the advantages that someone else has, then you're doing yourself and everyone like yourself a serious disservice by trying to grievance a government into adhering to your avocation of special treatment. Because in you receiving special treatment, you're disparaging somebody else. And in disparaging somebody else, you lose the ability to kind of reach a level of autonomy. You basically lose your ability to act as an individual, and you're a victim of the mob mentality. And so when you're a victim to the mob mentality, there's no telling what somebody could make you do. There's no telling what you would personally do. The second you enter a mob mentality, your entire understanding of yourself is predicated on a bunch of people who don't know themselves. And that's the last people you should be around if you are having a hard time figuring out yourself and accepting yourself. Because that's not anybody else's job. No one on earth is supposed to accept you but yourself. And if you accept yourself, you'll carry yourself in a manner that yields success and respect. And when you have that success and respect, the negative opinions of a few other people that have no bearing on your life whatsoever should be relatively easy to ignore. But people's sensitivity to words and language has kind of replaced what humans would ordinarily perceive as threats, you know? Back in the day, the worst thing that could happen to you was you got eaten by an animal, you know? So people out there were more geared towards building up a social environment where they can rely on their fellow man to come to their aid in the event of a wild animal attack, you know? That was just the basics of it. That portion of our humanity is still a part of our character, essentially, because it's all connected to our mechanisms of self-preservation. So, in understanding these mechanisms of self-preservation, you have to see that a lot of things these days are on its head, and that these mechanisms are being exploited. They've systematically have worked their way from the top to the bottom. They've eroded away our higher cognitive thinking, and now they're trying to get us to submit to our carnal instinctual thinking, which is all based upon fear and emotion. And if you live your life in response to how you feel and what you're afraid of, then you're not a human, you're an animal. And when you're an animal, you're capable of a lot of evil shit. And so, in respect to just yourself, take the time to really understand that privilege is not real. The only privileges that exist that you should care about are the privileges that you can create, generate, and perpetuate for oneself and other people identifying as having the same lack of opportunities, and to kind of share for one another. And it shouldn't be based upon any type of ideology. It should just be based upon the brotherhood of humanity and the sisterhood of humanity. It should be based upon the idea of unity and peace. If we try to put the task of unification and peace in the hands of the government, they're not going to go about it in a way that's going to be fair, to be honest. All they can do is extend more opportunities for people to destroy themselves, because if you adhere to somebody's lack of self-knowledge and grant them the ability to escape consequences that they could learn from to better build themselves up properly, you're taking away from the process of self-actualization, again discouraging people to embark upon a path and lifestyle of self-knowledge. And so everything is working against the people who are really thinking for themselves. And so essentially any person whose opinion that stems from their own understanding of self-knowledge and comes from a heart of empathy is going to be misconstrued as an attack. And depending on whatever words that you've been brainwashed to be triggered by, you're going to then label the individual in a manner where you can dehumanize them and disregard their perspective and their opinion. Oh, well, I'm not going to listen to this person because they're not the same gender as me. I'm not going to listen to this person because they're not, straight like me. I'm not going to listen to this person. Like, there's no good reason why we shouldn't be able to take the time to understand one another. There just isn't. So, when it comes to understanding the subject of privilege, don't use it as the pitchfork and torch to go on a witch hunt in this mob mentality, because the people we're going after have a right to believe whatever the fuck they want, and we have no right to infringe upon their beliefs in hopes that we're going to bring about unity. All you're going to do is take the overt hatred that they have, and you're going to make it a very covert type of discrimination. And so with covert discrimination, we won't be able to build up communities all behind unifying. The only people that I've honestly seen build up communities behind unifying are people who are foreign and have a sense of unity in their home, or, ironically enough, gay people. And if anybody should, be upset at the gay community for any reason, it should be the reason that they're basically jealous. They're jealous of the community because they're united. But what they don't understand is that their inclusive nature isn't going to really jive with people who have their personal reasons for having a bias towards another person. And so even they are going to be in a situation where they have to go, shit, now I gotta believe, whatever I need to get by in public, but whatever I can get away with, I'm gonna do, And when we live in a society where people aren't allowed to express their own biases, we will live in a society where no one can trust one another. And if we can't trust one another, we don't have civilization, we have chaos.